Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Friday edition of Lynn Cullen Live. I wasn't so live yesterday, so apologies for my not having been here. A momentary indisposition. Nothing horrific, as far as I know. So, speaking of temporary, that's not what Jimmy Carter's got. So I suppose you saw parts of or all of his interview yesterday, where he acknowledged his diagnosis and prognosis and took questions about anything and everything about his life. And it was it really was a remarkably impressive performance. Doesn't seem like the right word, because performance always suggests maybe a bit of what? A performance of acting, as if it's not authentic. This was totally authentic, totally Jimmy Carter. And whatever you think about him as a president, this guy is a fine, fine, fine human being. Quite clearly. He also is, it just brought back a flood of stuff. He was, and I've always said, he pissed me off so much with this Christian stuff he was always yapping about. And he was the first one that I'm aware of that went, I suppose in the South, this was a common thing where you just talked about God and Jesus and all this stuff. And but I had not recalled that ever being something that somebody running for the presidency did. And I was put off by it. Because I had always believed that your religious beliefs are something you carry inside of you. You act on them, but you don't go around squawking about them. Boy, I've been disabused of that notion since. Jeez. But as I watched his interview yesterday, his press conference, I I was reminded that he's different in the aspect that his Christianity is a wonderful Christianity. It's not this in-your-face exceptionalism, I'm right, you're wrong, kind of aggressive stuff that you get so much now. It was wholly felt and lived. The reason he's lauded so for his post-presidential work is because it was grounded in his Christianity, his faith that the idea of Christianity is love and of helping. A pretty amazing life, and I hope he gets some more years. I really do, because that's a life that has made an impact and is well lived. And then I was thinking, he's always dismissed as like one of the worst presidents ever. Oh my God, I threw him. But so often, presidents are either lucky or unlucky in terms of when they have a residence at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. And if the country's doing well when they're in residence, they are often credited for it. And if the country's not doing well, they're given the blame. Much of what happened in his presidency that made Americans feel very dispirited and like we were heading down some definitely wrong turn in the road were because of events totally out of his control. A lot of it had to do with OPEC. Remember them? The oil cartel. And they were playing the cartel game and created a shortage, which resulted in huge spikes in price. And then, those of us who were around at the time remember, my God, rationed gasoline. You could only go on certain days. You waited in lines, like those pictures of Russians waiting to get into a grocery store to get a loaf of bread. Americans were waiting in these lines, waiting to get a gallon of gas for their cars. It was something. And of course, he was blamed. Also, the hostage taking, which was humiliating to this country and was such an outrage to us. And he attempted to save the hostages to get them out. It failed. He was just, whatever. Remember, because the gasoline was so high, he went on television wearing a sweater and he told us, look, so here's what we should do. We need to stop being so beholden to these jerks and their goddamn gas. He didn't say that. So how about we lower our thermostats a little bit, put on a sweater. It was a perfectly reasonable thing, but oh my God, Americans reacted like, what? How dare you suggest we alter our lifestyle one whit, let alone put on a sweater? So in some ways, he was the victim of just bad timing. Any president who had been president in the years he was president, 76 to 80, would have been probably a one-termer. I don't know. So what he has done since, and he even said yesterday that he had had an extraordinary existence, he said, an extraordinary existence with many adventures, But quite clearly the thing that he thought was the most amazing was what he was able to do because he had been president. And that is the establishment of the Carter Center and all the work they did and continue to do. And to find out that he was supposed to, I guess next week, go to Nepal and build houses. At 90, Rosalind was going with him. He still hopes he can go, but if the docs say no, then he says his other family members will go in his stead, and he looked really upset about that. He felt sick in May, and that's when he was over in Africa overseeing another. This man is 90 years old. The Carter Center zeroed in on a disease that none of us have to worry about. It's something that strikes and kills people in Asia and Africa, millions. It's the guinea worm. I don't know. But the Carter Center in 80-something, 86 maybe, targeted the guinea worm. And I think I might have my numbers slightly askew, but in 86, there were millions of people in Asia and Africa that were suffering as a result of this worm. Do you know what the number was last year? 126 in the world. 126. And that is not because of anything anybody else did. That was Jimmy Carter's Carter Center. And one of the things he said yesterday is he hoped to heck that he would live to see the last damn guinea worm die. Remarkable man. A remarkable man. There's a piece that the Post-Gazette had today on their opinion about him, and perhaps showing that how different he was. And this is before he was president, and even before he ran. This was when he was former governor of Georgia, and a peanut farmer. And it was 1974. And the University of Georgia Law School, I guess, had an annual event in which important people would come and speak on matters. And in 1974, the keynote speaker was Senator Ted Kennedy. And the senator gave his speech, and he was widely believed to be, if I remember correctly, the front runner for the Democratic nomination. And about an hour or so after Kennedy got done, Jimmy Carter was given the podium. And by all accounts, everyone who was there that day says that he so blew away any memory of what Ted Kennedy had said and blew the audience away. He went after the plutocrats, might not use that word. He went after the corruption of money in our government. This is in 74. Jeez. It was practically clean then in comparison to where it is now. He talked about his Christian faith and about how it put him in solidarity with people on the margins, and said that is what government's purpose should be. He said, and this is a quote, that it was something to be lamented that the powerful and the influential shape the laws, and have a great influence on the Congress. That's only worsened. And he said the status quo serves their interest. He decried the incestuous relationship between government and corporations and their lobbyists. He decried the fact that if you were to look at the population of our prisons, that they were filled with the poor, because the rich, well, the rich had ways to avoid it. There was a reporter there from Rolling Stone magazine for some reason, Hunter Thompson, perhaps you know the name. Hunter Thompson heard that speech, and here's what he said. I have heard hundreds of speeches by all sorts of candidates and politicians, but I have never heard a sustained piece of political oratory that impressed me any more than the speech Jimmy Carter made that day. And here's the other thing. It was extemporaneous. Everyone admits, smart as hell. Everyone admits, good heart. But the admission that won't come is that he was anything but a failure as president. I don't know. I think failure's a little hard. But it was a bad time in the country. But what he has done since, my God. And this piece ends with, he has been, wait, I have to tell you this. When he got up to give this speech, he was talking about his faith. And he was talking about how his faith informed his view, his political view, his worldview, his sense of justice. And he said there were two people who he really derived his strongly held feelings from, two people's teachings. One, the noted theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, and who was all about establishing justice. And he said the second was the venerable theologian Bob Dylan. We got a call? Hello there. Hi.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. I like Jimmy Carter. I voted for him twice.
Me too.
And people get mad at me because these Reagan Democrats. I say that's when the collapse of the middle class started with Reagan. They always brag him up so much. But he gutted the middle class by the unions. And then this 401k, he's the direct result of it. He started that 401k stuff. That's why we don't have pensions anymore, because of him. So he, to me, was the worst for the people that work for a living. Anybody, teachers, it didn't matter what it is.
I agree with you totally that under
and they
Reagan.
Brag him up like even
I
the
know.
Democrats.
I know.
I'm so amazed.
Well, they do because he was, I guess what is generally called, a transformational president. He changed things. He took things. So he was a powerful president. That is true. Right. But you and I would say so much of what he did, we now see the results of, and it sure as hell ain't good for most people.
And he run up a deficit.
He just helped start the destruction of unions. He totally ran up the deficit. You point out some of the, I mean, it was amazing some of what he did. He did some good stuff, too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did. And mostly, he showed the power of the presidency if you have the ability to sort of, do the performance aspect of it. He was brilliant, but he was an actor.
It was another Donald Trump.
Oh, he wasn't that bad.
Maybe not.
I don't think.
But you know what scares me? I'm afraid if he does get the nomination, I could see him peeling enough Democrats off to even pull it off.
No. Don't worry.
You don't think?
No, don't waste.
I hope you're right.
Don't lose sleep over that.
Because there's a lot of Democrats that'll go along with what he says.
Yeah, right. But
there's some things he says.
I know.
And one of them, when he says, which I don't always believe, is he won't touch Social Security. I go along with that 100%. The other ones, they're going to do something.
He's not going to get the nomination.
No, probably not.
Not.
Okay, then.
Okay, bye.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if we believe, in fact, that big money pretty much controls things, they ain't going to let him have the nomination. Let's just put it that way. Two interesting emails here. One from, not sure who this is, whoever you are at CMU. This is absolutely true. Lynn, do you remember? Jimmy Carter had solar panels installed on the White House roof. Wow. He sure as hell did. I do remember. And of course, he was ridiculed for it, right? As soon as the aforementioned Ronald Reagan took over, he took the solar panels off. Yay! Yay! USA! USA! I mean, it's that kind of mentality. We don't need no stinking solar panels. We can have as much oil as we want. And we don't have to wear no stinking cardigan sweaters. USA! USA! Jesus. And Henry writes, I often run across this quote, which is attributed to Jimmy Carter. I assume this was aimed at those conservatives who are always complaining about government handouts. And the quote is this. He said, when I mentioned that Carter's Christianity seemed rather different than the Christianity we see espoused by so many presidential candidates and others now. Henry said, I thought of this quote. Here it is. If you don't want your tax dollars to help the poor, then stop saying that you want a country based on Christian values. Because you don't. I had not heard that quote. If he didn't say it, he certainly lived it. I mean, that's what he did. And so God bless him. Are you guys spontaneous, or do you plan ahead? If you plan ahead even a little bit, I got something for you to do next weekend. Not this weekend that's coming up, next weekend. Many of you do it all the time. And heaven knows I've done it. What is she talking about? Well, she's talking about the Shadyside Arts Festival. And this is going to be the 19th annual. Not a great number. Next year should be what? We love those zeros on the end. This is the 19th, and it's not this weekend, but the coming weekend. And this is that art and craft festival with all those, booths and stuff, and of course the food and throngs of happy people. And I always say, do your Christmas shopping. That's when you can do it. And it doesn't cost anything to get in. It might cost you when you're there because you have trouble saying, oh, no, never mind. So just wanted to put that out there. I will remind you of that every once in a while. Okay? Okay. I think that's it on Jimmy Carter. Wow. And you see the serenity that his Christian faith gives him. Do you know what he's doing Sunday? You do know what he's doing Sunday. He's having his first, targeted treatment of his brain cancers today, I guess. That's Friday. He's a 90-year-old man. They're going to stick lasers or something in his head. They're going to, who knows what. On Sunday, he intends to be where he always is on Sunday. He's going to be at church, and he's going to be doing what he's done for decades and decades and decades. He teaches Sunday school. Be hard-pressed to find a more impressive human being. Okay, letter to the editor of the day. This goes to you, Danny Evans in Dormont. Anybody know him? Give him a shout out for me. Danny Evans in Dormont. Beautifully done. Yay! I will read it in toto. Save is what we keep telling our next generation while crushing education costs, inflation, limited job prospects, and rising healthcare costs force them into indentured servitude for the first 10 years of their careers. Save is what we keep telling middle-aged, pedigreed workers now battling for jobs with employers seeking 80-hour-a-week workers for 40-hour-a-week pay. Employers who now seem to want to juice each employee like an orange to satisfy bloated executive salaries, and institutional investors playing golf with the uber-rich who stand to make millions on stock prices going up at any cost. You should have saved, is what we tell experienced workers who lost everything in the market boondoggle of 2007, or remortgaged their house to pay for tuition or a life-saving medical procedure, or had the temerity to take in a family member who had the audacity to get morbidly sick in a pay-for-play healthcare system. All of this while the plutocrats systematically decimated wages, pensions, unions, and worker protections, all while they played globally devastating roulette with the stock market they replaced pensions with in the first place, all while they threatened the very planet itself. There's nothing left to save anymore. Remember how taxation without representation worked out a few hundred years ago? We are a good, connected people who can be the authors of a new future here. But it's gonna get really ugly first. Look at the election now, even in its infancy. It's as ugly as sin. Well done. Well done, well-written critique, Danny Evans of Dormont. I salute you. So, did you see this thing, U.S. Airways? U.S. Airways, which doesn't really exist anymore, right? I mean, it essentially, who gobbled them up? American, right? USA! USA! U.S. Airways got gobbled up by American. It's right. And U.S. Airways will cease to exist this fall. Is it in October? Might be. So what they're doing is they've decided to mark the end by having a ceremonial final flight with the U.S. Airways logo. That flight will be October 16th. That's the end. That's the end. And that flight will take off from Philadelphia, and it will land in Charlotte, and it will land in Phoenix, and it will land in San Francisco, and then it will return to Philadelphia, and that's all she wrote. Some people in Pittsburgh are saying, excuse me? If this is to celebrate the history of U.S. Airways, how the hell aren't you putting down here? For that matter, how the hell aren't you starting from here? Because this is where you started, you idiots. In 1939, this is where what would become U.S. Airways began. We also remember that this is where we built U.S. Airways with tax dollars, that beautiful airport, which they abandoned within years of it having been built. The number of former employees of U.S. Airways and U.S. Air who live here is multitudinous. So, Jim Roddy, who was the Allegheny County executive at the time they took off, said, well, yeah, he said, it's the last and final insult. And he says, good riddance. When he says that, he's talking about the corporate entities, not talking about all the fine little people who made that airline. But for them to, in their final flight, go like this to us, what is the purpose of that? What bastards. Obituary of the day. George Hauser. I didn't know his name either, but when I read the obit, I was embarrassed that I didn't know his name. It's interesting how some names become known. Some people get their names, written into the history books, and others are just sort of like passed over for some reason, even though I guess maybe if they'd been more flamboyant or something. I think that might be the case with George Hauser because he eschewed the kind of personal publicity that would make somebody, well known. George Hauser died at the age of 99. He was a Methodist minister. He was a guy who lived his Christianity like Jimmy Carter. In 1942, he, who was white, by the way, and two of his black colleagues, these names you might know, the black colleagues you might know, James Farmer, I certainly remember him, and Bayard Rustin. They formed an organization in 1942 called the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. And get this, 5 years later, so that puts us when? 1947. World War II has ended. Segregation lives in the country. The Supreme Court has just handed down a ruling that actually barred segregation on interstate transit. So if you were driving a Greyhound bus or a train, you could no longer legally have segregated cars or segregated seating according to the U.S. Supreme Court. 1946. It was widely ignored. It was ignored in the South. So George Hauser, the minister, and his two African-American friends, Bayard Rustin and James Farmer, decided that they would test this Supreme Court ruling, and they sent black and white riders throughout the South on interstate buses. 1946. This took a lot of guts. There were specific things they were told they should do. There was an equal number of blacks and an equal number of whites on each bus that they targeted. The blacks were to sit in the front. The whites were to sit wherever. If the driver said to the black person, "You can't sit here," they were to say this: as an interstate passenger, I have a right to sit anywhere in this bus. This is the law as laid down by the United States Supreme Court. They were told if the driver then calls for the police, they were to say to the police officer, as an interstate passenger, I have a right to sit anywhere in this bus. This is the law as laid down by the United States Supreme Court. Over a 2-week period in 1947, a number of extraordinarily brave Americans, black and white, did this, traveling to 15 cities, through Virginia, through North Carolina, through Tennessee and Kentucky, and they were arrested, and they were beaten, and they were jailed. They were absolutely in the right. They were arrested, they were beaten, they were jailed. Now, whoa, what was that?
Sorry.
Was that your...
That's my lid of my ball jar.
Oh. The lid on your ball jar just went like that?
Yeah, because they, you know how you can press it?
Yeah, you can... Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So, when you hear of the freedom rides, I'm sure you've heard of them. As a matter of fact, I think we recently celebrated an anniversary of the Freedom Riders and the Freedom Rides. You're not thinking of this. You're the Freedom Rides that we think of. Started in 1961. George Hauser and James Farmer and Bayard Rustin predated the Freedom Rides by a long shot. They showed how to do it. 1947. And now, in retrospect, those who know American history do say that was the first Freedom Ride. 14 years before the Freedom Rides that got a lot more attention. In 1952, Hauser helped found a group called Americans for South African Resistance. He was working against apartheid in 1952. He was always so far ahead. We didn't know him. You ever heard of him? George Hauser. It says in his obit that he appeared constitutionally averse to limelight. So he did not seek to be known. He sought to better the world because of his Christian beliefs, much like Jimmy Carter. And he said that there was a hymn written by John Henry Newman that really spoke of his view of how progress happens. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen quickly or in a spectacular fashion. Excuse me. It happens by small, incremental steps pushed by courageous people who aren't doing it. It's like people who plant a tree and never see its full bloom. People who act not to enjoy the fruits of their labor, but for others in the future, who keep things moving forward. These are exemplary people. These are the heroes. These are the people who make things happen. Here is the hymn that he thought said it. Lead, kindly light, amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark, and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step, enough for me. And he said, that is what I believe. I believe one step is enough. And you take it. As long as you have faith, you're doing the right thing to begin with, that you're on the right path. Extraordinary man. That's 2 for today. George Hauser, ladies and gentlemen, lived 99 years. So what are you doing August 29th? Huh? 30 days, has September, April, June, and November. Because there's 31 days. I was going to say it was a penalty. So I'm just going to suggest that you make a note in your calendar or on your little smarty phone that that's Shadyside Arts and Crafts Festival on Walnut Street. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's where the whole street's closed down and all those stores, and then the stores have, I mean, it's something. It's happening, not this weekend, but next weekend, and I wanted to make sure you knew about it and might think about going. This is really where you do I'm telling you, get your birthday gifts there, your Christmas shopping. I always amaze that people wait until Christmas to do the shopping. Here's an opportunity to get all kinds of stuff for people, and then you just sit on it, and you don't have to do the Christmas rush, the lunatic thing. So just remember, Shadyside, the art festival on Walnut Street. Not this weekend, next weekend. Just saying. All right. How bad do these Republican presidential candidates have to be for the Wall Street Journal to do on its editorial page, lead editorial today, a scathing commentary on their stupidity regarding the U.S. Constitution. And so I normally don't look at the opinion page of the Wall Street Journal because, I'm trying to live a long life myself. And I know it's injurious to my health. However, what's got the Wall Street Journal up in arms is this anchor baby, throw them all out, get rid of the 14th Amendment stuff. The 14th Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, which says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Well, Donald Trump doesn't like that, so that's something he's made a big to-do about. He wants to get rid of it because these Mexicans, these brown people from south of the border, they're coming across, especially their pregnant women. They're coming across to drop their babies here, so they'll have an American baby. And the only way we're going to stop that is by getting rid of that damn amendment. Now, what's amazing is, and this is what's got the Wall Street Journal freaking out, is that they assumed that the other candidates would say, Trump, you're out of your cotton-picking mind. But they didn't. In fact, they all jumped on his bandwagon. They're running to keep up with him now. They are agreeing with everything he said. First on the bandwagon, Scott Walker. Yay! I remember I've told you for months, beware, Scott Walker. I think he's not going to do it, thank God. That's one, probably down. Here are the others who said, stand with Donald Trump. Get rid of the 14th Amendment. Rand Paul, Ben Carson, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum, and Bobby Jindal. Now, that's the one that blows my mind. Bobby Jindal, a brown-skinned person himself, who, guess what, is an American because of the 14th Amendment. He's a birthright citizen himself. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. So, so the journal says, this debate amounts to a lecture that some people are not real Americans and have no right to be. These immigration hawks are correct that birthright citizenship is unusual among the nations of this world. But since when did Republicans dump their belief in American exceptionalism? Yeah, they're saying, no other country in the world does this. Why in no other country can you go in, drop a baby, and then have that baby be a citizen? Yeah, and you know what, you idiots? That's one of the things that, in fact, has made this country the great, exceptional nation it is. We have not done things like the other nations did. And look who's on top, pretty much. Eh? You fools. If you know your American history, you know that throughout our history, there was always a group that was believed to be defiling America, believed to be not worthy of citizenship. If you're Irish, you were once that. If you're a Jew, you were once that. If you're a Chinese person, you were once that. If you're Japanese, you were once that. Africans, Italians. Eh? There are so many, it's a joke. Okay, so what we got left here? Uh-oh. I'll tell you, August is a tough month to be a talk show host. Have you noticed, like, most of the regulars in media disappear in August? Sort of like the shrinks do? They do because, generally speaking, it's a tough time. And so, God, I'll try to go for the full allotment, seeing as I didn't even show up yesterday. Well, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this Ashley Madison thing. What? Ashley Madison, you like that? You like that subject?
I just love the Josh Duggar thing.
Oh, Josh Duggar, that's right. Oh, wait a minute. I do have stuff. Thank you for reminding me.
Can't get any better.
Josh Duggar. Now, I've never in my life paid any attention to the Duggars at all. I wouldn't know Josh Duggar's name, although he was he's the one who took the whole family franchise down, right? By molesting his sister or something. Several sisters. Well, I mean, my God. He had 7,000 sisters, so he had about 15 sisters. Who the hell knows? I don't want to wait. Anyway, he has now, yes, said, not only was I, assaulting my sisters, but I've been looking at porn on the internet and got addicted, and then I joined up with Ashley Madison, and then I've just been really bad. And I'm really sorry. Well, I don't care. But you know what? There's all these other people. So the information is starting to come out. And just to bring it closer to home, Tim McNulty, a spokesman for Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto, said a review determined that 4 city email accounts did show up on the Ashley Madison site. Now, what a lot of people are saying, beware, 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 because when you sign up for something like this, nobody checks to see if it's really your email. Nobody checks to see. I mean, you can be using a bogus email, but if you use a bogus email, how do they get back in touch with you? I don't understand. I mean, Barack Obama's on the site. I mean, but someone signed on with barack.obama.us.gov or whatever the hell it is. And I mean, there's no such... So they say beware. Thousands of government accounts. Many state accounts. The Post-Gazette did a quick search. Turned up 8 state employees who are on this list. And other people who had sensitive jobs in the White House, Congress, and law enforcement, and the military. Well, yeah, guys, we're talking about men here. Give me a break. Yeah, but there's a lot of nervous people around. Oh, yeah. If you see men, like, sweating for no particular reason or looking a little freaked, check out your office, wherever you work. You know, even tomorrow or like whatever, on the anywhere you're at. See if you see men looking frantic. Married men.
They're all in the family values count.
And they're all, yes, spouting family values like Josh Duggar. Jeez. As a matter of fact, those are the ones most likely to be on Ashley Madison. Those Christians in your face all the time about Christian family values, Christian family values, and then they turn out they're diddling little kids and they're screwing around on their wives and they're that's all right. And in the remaining 10 minutes, I want to say this. Woo! I didn't do that right. What's that horrible sound? The wooing. What is that horrible sound? How do they do it? Because I hear it and I become homicidal. I do. And I've been at games when someone starts it up behind and above me, and I turn around, I'm looking for him, I'm thinking, if I figure out who you are, I'm coming after you and I'm killing you! Woo! As you know, I'm a Pirate fan, and I actually now pretty much have the games on all the time at my house. A game is a nice thing. You can get other things done. You look up when you have to. You blah, 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 this and that. But then the woos start. Even in the comfort of my own home, those friggin' woo are driving me insane. I've mentioned this before. But then somebody with a lot more Twitter followers mentioned it. Jane Pitt. Because they're driving her nuts, too. Jane and I often are on the same footing, even though politically we're not necessarily. And she wants to kill him, too. And she apparently has started enough of a conversation that now it's being discussed. Clearly, Clint Hurdle doesn't like it. The players don't like it. Nobody likes it. It is not something that belongs in it's an annoying sound, one. The next thing you know, they'll be doing those voovs things. Vuvuzelas. What is that crap in the soccer games? Vuvuzelas. And as a matter of fact, one of those did show up at the... People who do that should be pummeled. I'm not kidding you. Pummeled. Shown no mercy. Now, my kid, he gets a kick out of it because he remembers the origin of the woo. professional wrestling. A guy named Ric Flair. That's according to my son, and he's a pretty reliable source on this. Ric Flair, before he would make his entrance, would go, woo, or whatever. That's not it quite right. What is it? It's so awful, but it's a woo. He would do that, and then they would start playing the theme from 2001: A Space Odyssey. So that's where it started. Ric Flair, wrestling. It was annoying then, but it was just one guy. And whoever is doing that at the stadium, I want you to know, it is an antisocial act. There is no way anyone else wants to hear that piercing, obnoxious sound, okay? It's defiling the park. It's like letting your dog poop and not picking it up. We're going to kill you. I am telling you, you are so outnumbered. The number of people who are annoyed and, in fact, get pissed off beyond belief. You know, the thing I love about going to the games is the baseball crowd is so far and away a great crowd, a nice crowd, a family crowd. It's so unlike, by the way, sorry if you're a Steeler ticket holder, so far and away a nicer crowd than the Steelers crowds. And this threatens to, cause a problem. I hereby am deputizing each and every one of you, if you are ever at a game and can identify one of these jerks. I don't know what you should do. Try to reason with them? I doubt it. There needs to be, and maybe Jane Pitt and others, I sign up, can start that when the woo starts, the crowd literally turns on these jerks. I mean, just turns on them and shuts them up. It can work. It will take a real jerk to then do it. So, I'm telling you, solidarity here, but hey, this is how we make this happen. Like George Hauser said, one small step. That's all we need. Now, granted, this is not as big a deal as that, but it's bothering me. I thought I was alone. Oh, God, I'm not. I'm going to the game Saturday. If anybody does that woo, and I have it in my power to identify that person, I will make a point of going after him. I will get up from my seat. I will go to them, and I will say, shut the fuck up. When an old gray-haired lady says that to you and you're some young kid, chances are you do. I'm just saying. I know my mom did it at a Packer game. Some guy was screaming and using the F word. So she didn't say shut the fuck up. She'd probably tell me to shut the up. They kept saying, and finally my mother gets up and turns and she says, "You stop that!" That was it. She sat down to applause. Very well done, you old lady. Way to go. So old ladies who often are said to have no power and we're not even seen, we're invisible, we're this and that, we do have some power. We have that inner mother thing. We have still our mother voices, our mother deadly stares, and we can incorporate them at important times. So maybe I won't say shut the fuck up to this guy because that doesn't sound like what a mother would say. But I will give him my mother look, and I will tell him with my teeth, like closed, I will say, you do that one more time. Right? I think it'll work. And I'm willing to bet that if I were to do it in a rather loud manner myself, that I too, like my mother before me, would be showered with applause and huzzahs for my brave takedown of that obnoxious young man. Have I told you about the Shadyside Arts Festival? I don't think I did. Oh. Anyway, you know, the producers of this festival produce some of the higher-end festivals throughout the country. Yep. Walnut Street! Always a happening place, but Walnut Street, the last weekend in August, which is coming up after this one, is going to be a hot place to be. The arts festival happening, just want you to remember, you know, sometimes you forget about it, and then you later see someone and they've got some beautiful thing of jewelry on. You say, God, is that great? Where'd you get that? They'll say, Shadyside Arts Festival. And you think, oh no, did I miss it? So, I am here to make sure you don't, okay? You can thank me later, but I'm telling you, great stuff there. Bring a little money with you, although it's free to get in, but bring a little money with you because you're definitely going to want to spend it. And while we're at it, enjoy this gorgeous weather. Have a wonderful weekend. And I hesitate to say it because of the pitching lineup tonight, but go Bucs! No wooing.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.